fit. Not so bad after all. What is up, YouTube? I watched this. I survived. Barely. I think I did. I hope I did. I don't know. I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm here, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. This video is going to have some not safe for work type discussion. We're going to talk about extreme horror movies a bit. If you don't like that type of stuff, I understand, and I don't particularly like it either, but I am going to talk about it. So if you don't want to watch, that's cool. Return the Slab. It's about 15-20 minutes, I think. I'll have some clips at the beginning of this video. It was okay. It's a bunch of shorts, black and white mostly. Some of them have the VHS style with the poor tracking and all that stuff. The problem with this movie is that it gives itself away way too quickly, in that I think it says like what website to go to and check out the YouTube channel. That should have been saved for the end. And the shorts are okay. There was one with a dude walking through the woods and he finds like a body. It's like very clearly a dummy, which I actually kind of like that it was very clearly a dummy. And there's some cult-like figures in the woods. There's one with like a plague doctor. One with, which I'm not including in the clips, is like a man eating food, and then he stands up and he's wearing a diaper and his voice sounds like a baby. The best of the shorts was the stop motion one. It reminded me of David Firth. He had one, I think it was called Hell, from about 15 to 20 years ago, I think. David Firth does salad fingers, British guy, very, very talented guy. Very interesting stuff he puts out. The problem with this, is that I guess it kind of falls in that creepy pasta type realm. It takes it's too aware of itself, and anytime any media becomes aware of itself, usually it hurts the viewing experience, especially something like this where it's supposed to be mysterious, and the YouTube channel's full of weird, mysterious videos, and the site as well. So I'm not dogging on it. And I think that it's great that people do this stuff and exercise their creativity, and making short movies and things like this are great. Just was okay. So that's kind of that with this. I think I'm okay. Maybe there was something in there that I didn't see, something subliminal. If you would like this, let me know, but only on the condition that after you watch it, you pass it along to somebody else. If not, I'll hold on to it. So that's Return the Slab. I figured it'd be a good chance to talk about some other types of movies that I find interesting, not particularly good. They don't have a lot of. Most of them don't have a lot of value. This one does. Faces of Death. Won't talk about that. Quickly, I'll say that I grew up with these movies. My father and my aunt were both in the home video business very early. I'm probably wrong, but my aunt was like a middleman for Disney in some way, in that in their first runs of VHS tapes between stores, chain stores, and Disney to get them in the stores. And my father, is right here. This is my dad here on the cover of the video guide from September 1987. Oh my God! I don't know if you can hear that motorcycle next door, but this guy's got the loudest bike in the world. It's horrible. So these plastic sleeves that you can see on these videos. If you remember going to video stores, you know the hard plastic slips that would go on the cover. My father was pretty much the first guy to make those, and as well as other stuff related to videos like the stickers and the bag. We used to have just tens of thousands of these bags around the house. I wish we still had them. I wish I had this Fright Night promo. Okay. Anyways, so we had a lot of stuff coming out. So we had a lot of tapes coming in. We had so much that I think my parents probably didn't know what I was watching. They didn't know what it was. And given that he was doing business with a lot of the video stores in Boston and the surrounding cities like Taunton, Brockton, and some of the smaller towns too, I could go into these stores, and it was they knew who my dad was, they knew who I was. I could rent whatever I wanted, pretty much. So we had a lot of this coming through. Again, my parents weren't like okay with me watching it, but it happened. It's Faces of Death. All these movies I would call Mondo, except for maybe this. I've never actually seen it, but we'll talk about it. Mondo films, like world. I think it means world cinema. There was a movie in the '60s called Mondo Cane, which was a pseudo documentary that showed like weird ritualistic practices, and these movies tend to have a lot of animal cruelty in them, which is an immediate turn off for me. And so you had this movie in the '60s, Mondo Cane, and then you had Africa Audio, which I don't know what year that came out. It was in the '70s. You had another one, I think mid '70s, called The Shocking Asia, which was similar, but it was it took place all in Japan mostly, I think. You had another one in the '80s called Amazing Shocking Asia, and then there was a whole series of them. So yeah, you had a movie called Africa Audio by two brothers. I don't recall their names. Or no, they weren't brothers. The soundtrack was by Riz Ortini from Star Wars. Ortolini, I think. He was a great Italian composer, or he did what was it? He's Drive, the movie Drive, when he's driving off at the end. That's Riz Ortolani, whatever it is, and that's from a movie that came out after Africa Audio, called Goodbye Uncle Tom. So when Africa Audio came, which dealt with, it was supposed to be a documentary, but it really wasn't. Everything was kind of set up. There was, like I said, animal cruelty, stuff with the Zulus and the colonialism, and when it came out, I believe it was Ebert, said it was the most racist movie he'd ever seen. So the brothers said, well, we're going to make a movie that shows how unracist we are. Is that the right term? Unracist, non-racist, whatever. And a movie came out called Goodbye Uncle Tom. If you want to, you can watch it on YouTube, uncensored. I don't recommend you do. It's pretty brutal, pretty graphic. But what's interesting about it is you're seeing. So the movie's about two documentary filmmakers who land on a plantation in the South in a helicopter. How they get there, how they time travel, doesn't matter. They just show up in antebellum South and on a plantation and start filming different aspects of America during slavery. And it's the weirdest thing because it's slavery through the eyes of two Italians who don't know jack shit about slavery, I don't think. And it's like this weird caricature of what slavery was actually like, and it's such a messed up movie. It's so brutal, and it's so it's very racist. Some of it's kind of unintentionally racist because these guys they thought they were doing a good thing. The soundtrack to that movie is great. So that was, I can't remember what year that was, 76 maybe. This Face of Death came out in 78. And then, in the 90s, you had things like Traces of Death, which I don't have here. And probably this, The Many Taboos of Death. What year is this? 1999. Shocker of the Year, Dead on Arrival, Animals Attack People, People Attack. See, there's like a lot of like animal cruelty. Hate that stuff. I can't deal with it. This is 1996. I threw this in here because it borders on extreme horror for me, but we won't talk about that. You had stuff like this: Best of the Worst Crashes, The Horrors of War. I'm not going to turn this around because there are very graphic things in the back. The Horrors of War 2. This was 1994. The 90s were a weird time. This kind of post-80s glow, I guess. We think of this, it's like sort of thinking for the 70s, 60s, 70s, kind of not free love, but this kind of carefree hippie thing going. The 80s were really seemed to be the carefree time, and then everything kind of crashed into the 90s, and it was a weird time for this stuff like this. You had the WWE, the Attitude Era, Jerry Springer. Very nihilistic, I guess, dirty, mean-spirited, and all these movies. Well, I haven't seen all of them, but most of the time, these types of movies are very mean-spirited. They're cynical, kind of mocking, I guess. They present themselves, particularly Faces of Death, presents itself as something that it's. What's the word I'm looking for? That it's enlightening you to another part of life, a darker part of life, and it's not. It's really just exploiting that. And then you have some other types of movies. There was also another movie which may be worth checking out. It's called The Killing of America. It's a documentary, and it's from like 82, maybe 81, 82, and it's kind of Faces of Death-ish, but it's much better, and it doesn't feel as mean as Faces of Death. And the guy that did it, the guy that narrated it, Chuck Riley, was he did all the trailers in the 80s. So it's a voice you've heard before, and it's maybe worth watching if you're into that type of stuff. And then you have like this, which I've never seen this. Some people consider gourmet, you may find this to be obscenely grotesque, shocking menu 3. It's pretty gross. Even the cover is a man looks like he's, I'm not eating bugs isn't particularly weird to me, but these movies are. I bought them because they were interesting, if nothing else. Extreme documentary, they're labeled as. You had, in the 2000s, you had squish films, which I'm not going to get into, and you can kind of imagine what that may be. And there's other ones that I don't want to talk about. But early on, these movies, Faces of Death, and not the Mondo stuff, early Mondo stuff, but mid 70s into the 80s and 90s, and now probably, they were made for a Japanese audience. This was made for a Japanese audience. Japanese investors came to Schwartz, I think that's the guy that did it, and gave him the money to make these movies, or the first one for Japan. Traces of Death feels very American. Has the soundtrack is death metal, extreme death metal, and deals with a lot of American stuff. There's one particular, what's the kid's name? There was that case in the 80s with the Judas Priest. The kid shot himself. The two kids shot themselves, and one of them survived and sued Judas Priest. So there was subliminal messages in the music, and stuff like that. It covered. There's a great movie on Vimeo. I think it's Vimeo or if you just type in Dream Deceivers, it's a documentary, and I ran out of space on my camera, so it's gonna jump a little bit there. I apologize. But yeah, this had a real special place in the video store. It was legendary, and it was different than every other movie that was there to scare us. And a lot of places they didn't carry it, or it was behind the counter. The Blockbuster near me refused to carry this. If you were to watch this now, you would. It's ridiculous. It's very clearly fake, but in 1986, very I think back and I think, well, how could people miss this, including myself? But back then it was presented itself as a very real thing, very banned in 48 countries, and Dr. Francis B. Gross, which is the most ridiculous name ever to host something like this, narrating and taking you on this journey, this weird and horrific journey. I think the guy's name, the guy that played Francis Gross, was Alan Carr or something like that. He was like a bit actor in the 70s and 80s. There may be something inappropriate on my TV right now. I'm trying to cover it up. So a lot of these scenes, like you said, you watch them and they're not like you remember them. Particularly the monkey scene. That's the infamous monkey scene. It's pretty ridiculous. You watch it. It's very clearly a rubber monkey and almost looks like a styrofoam mallet. There's the electrocution scene, which was filmed in I think his name is Schwartz, director's attic. What else was there? The crocodile scene. The dude that I think it was in Face of Death 1, but could have been 2. And the guy he's parachuting, and he parachutes into a crocodile pit. And when I watched it when I was younger, I thought, well, there was no second thought of why there was a camera on this guy the entire time. There was a cult scene, which kind of, that was all the director's friends and this cannibalistic cult, and people people believed it to be real, and there was some real stuff in there, slaughterhouse and some other things, and I think some assassination attempts or something like that. Again, I don't watch these. I haven't watched it for years. And I think like 2005 or so, they wanted to remake this. I think it was the Ring type thing, the phenomena that was the Ring, where they wanted to do a Ring style version of Face of Death, where you watch this tape and, you know, I don't know what the outcome was, but it surely wasn't good. Yeah, now it's, you know, you have Live Leak. You know, you had Rotten.com back in the day. I don't know if that's still a thing or not, but Ogrish, and then like Live Leak. Ogrish became Live Leak, I believe. So this is nothing compared to what you get online now. But the time, the imagery, content, it's all just right to create this very special thing that is, you know, Faces of Death. And there's a lot more I'm sure I could say about it, but it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm falling asleep. This, I don't know where I even got this Best of the Worst crashes. This has got to be Rubberhead Production. This is very 90s looking. This feels like something you would get off the TV. Some of those things you could get off the TV were pretty horrific, like too shocking for TV. Much worse than anything you're going to see in this, because the footage is clear. It's very real. I have a Traces of Death barf bag. I wish I knew where it was. I wanted to bring it out for this video. So yeah, there's a quick history on some, you know, Mondo exploitation films. I don't recommend you watch these. They don't serve much. This happened to become something special, but these generally don't serve a purpose. You know, Traces of Death, I guess I could appreciate certain parts of the aesthetic of that movie, the extreme death metal, and there's some synth stuff too, which is really interesting, that plays during certain parts. I remember the last one that I could recall, by the way, Dead Alive Productions, the people that put this out, was one that did Traces of Death as well as I'm sure many others. I remember there was a place near me called Max Movies, I think, in Lakeville, and their back room it was all horror, and I remember renting like Dr. Gore and all these types of movies, and I had a friend over one day, and we rented Redneck Zombies and Amazing Shocking Asia, and I lasted about a minute before I went in the other room. I couldn't deal with it. It was just not, life is tough enough, and it's full of enough pain and misery. I don't need to watch others. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm sure in 20 minutes I'm going to be like, oh crap, I should have said this, that, and the other thing, but it is very late. And maybe this has fogged my mind. Maybe it's slow. Maybe it's not what I thought. Yeah, is there anything else to talk about these horrors? I bought these off of eBay recently, not because I want to watch, because the cover art was pretty unbelievable. The back of this, like I said, even the side art has some gruesome things on it that I'm not going to show. But this stuff, the art is great. The guy that put this out, the company, I believe, or no, is it the company? Paul Kiner Productions. Yeah, written directed by Paul Kiner. He has these 2 movies and then one other VHS I found about, I think it's like there was a lot of Indiana Jones ripoffs in the 80s and 90s. Crap, It was one put out by Canon. I don't know. It's one of those adventure style movies, and I wanted to get it, but I don't want to pay $75 for a tape. But yeah, the art on these were really nice. These I picked up for pretty much next to nothing on a Facebook, in a Facebook VHS group. I have quite a few more. I'm not going to go digging out these terrible things. There was another one in the 90s, wasn't there? The When Animals Attack was in the 90s too, right? I think another one that, you know, that stuff was hot for a while. Death and Destruction. You know, I don't know. The 90s could come back. Maybe I hope not. I hope that time is done. The 90s kind of stunk, at least for me they did. But yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sure there's going to be some editing issues with the storage on my phone, and the other stuff that I'm going to try to edit on my phone is going to come out really bad and really cheesy, but whatever. So I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe there'll be some lighter fare next time. And again, if you want this, you can let me know and I'll send it to you, but you have to pass it along when you're done. That's the only rule. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.